We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
There's a beer commercial. I have to actually look up what it is. Kokanee beer that Renee DeHinden stars in. He's this older guy at the time because it was in the 80s, and you see he's talking about all the research that he does and how hard it is to get Sasquatches on camera and whatever, like that kind of stuff in front of his trailer. And then you see a Sasquatch walk into his trailer and walk away with a case of this beer like behind him. He's like, I've tried my whole life.
That's really clever.
Yeah,
I love that.
He's very Canadian. It's very funny.
Oh yeah, I've never heard of. What is it, Kokanee?
Kokanee, K-O-K, let me see, K-O-K-A-N-E-E. I believe Kokanee, so it's a fish, Kokanee salmon, but it's also a beer.
I feel like we're going to learn a lot about Canada today.
We're going to learn quite a bit about Canada today.
That's great.
I feel like I had a really good education into Canada. If you just imagine that all of this takes place in Letterkenny, I think that it makes more sense.
Okay. I'll do that. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Either Letterkenny or the Coen brothers movie, Fargo. Letterkenny or Fargo.
Which is not Canada.
Yeah, but it's close enough. Come on.
It sits up there.
Yeah.
It's up
I feel like the attitudes are still the same.
The attitudes are the same, I think.
We're offending everybody.
I think we are. Like, they're very distinct. Yes. I mean, it's weird because, like, I grew up 3 hours south of Canada.
Yeah.
And I've never been to Canada.
You've never ever been to Canada?
Never stepped foot in Canada.
I guess I never knew that.
Isn't that terrible? It's a damn shame.
Mm-hmm. All the people I've talked to who have been to Canada say that I would absolutely love Canada.
I want to go.
I know my dad went to Vancouver, which isn't quite the same thing because Vancouver's like a city. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
We don't know shit about Canada.
Oh, no, we're in trouble already.
We're going to teach you about Canada, folks. What is Canada?
Where is Canada?
Where is Canada?
So Canada lies south of the United States. I'll do my best to teach you a little bit about Canada, but mostly we're going to learn a little bit about animals and the way that animals behave, and we're going to learn a lot about the way that the news and small town politics works, I think, ultimately.
Spicy.
Yeah, right?
Very cool. All right, well, why are we talking about this? Well, by the way, we're slaying monsters. That's Matt.
Hey.
He's the one with the lower voice.
Yeah.
And I'm the one with the higher voice. I'm EJ.
Yeah, this is Matt.
This is EJ. We're gonna talk about Bigfoot. Not medium foot, not little foot, Bigfoot.
Yeah. And we are going to talk about prehistory of Sasquatch. That's kind of what I'm calling it. So we're going to look at and examine some of the indigenous mythology that has been linked to the Sasquatch creature of today. And then we're going to talk about the origins and the roots of the more modern Sasquatch mythology. So I tend to divide Sasquatchery into two distinct, well, there's more, but there's a distinct dividing line in terms of eras where Patterson-Gimlin is that line, right? The most famous, everybody knows this, the Bigfoot walking through the forest, turns, looks at the camera. It's the image that when I say Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, that's the thing that comes up, pops up in your head. Before that is what I kind of consider the prehistory. This is where it was rumors, tales, not really like a big public figure the way it became post-1967, post-film. Like that film changed not only Sasquatch, Bigfoot, but cryptozoology on the whole forever. And so we are going to talk about the events essentially leading up to the era of Patterson-Gimlin. And we're going to do so by talking about the mythology of the wild man of the woods. We're going to talk about indigenous mythology and stories that have been at least equated to Sasquatch, if not directly inspired Sasquatch. And then we are also going to talk about 2 of the 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery. We're going to talk about John Green and Renee DeHinden and how they together helped to build this modern mythology. Cool.
Not John Green, the author.
Not John Green, the author. It's funny, he is an author, but not John Green, the author.
Not that author.
No, Fault in Our Stars.
Not
right?
Fault in Our Stars.
No, totally different guy. I mean, I think, anyway. But he'd be much older than you think he is then, because this John Green served in World War II. So
John Green is timeless. Don't you know this?
I mean, I guess
he's a time traveler.
Yeah. I think the Fault in Our Stars is actually much funnier if you consider that all of the characters in it are Sasquatches instead.
Touching. It's a very sad story.
I know.
They're a tearjerker about Sasquatches.
Well, it's kind of like Sasquatch Sunset, apparently.
God, right, which I don't know if I'm going to see that.
It just doesn't interest me. It's like, I don't know what you're doing with it. Anyway, let's not go down that road.
Let's not go down that road. Okay. All right.
So, when we talk about Sasquatch, and we say Bigfoot sometimes, I tend to use Sasquatch because when we say Bigfoot tends to be more of a American phrase, or at least an American and Canadian phrase, whereas you have like Yeti in the East, in like Nepal, they have the Yeti, and then you have the Yowie in Australia and stuff. But all of these collectively, researchers tend to say they fall under the Sasquatch moniker. So we're going to call them Sasquatch whenever we talk about hairy bipeds. Okay?
Sounds good.
Cool. So when we talk about these Sasquatches, theoretically, we're talking about a living animal, right? So that gives us a deeper insight than we get when we discuss like ghosts or aliens, because those things exist outside of the spectrum of science, at least as we understand it. We don't know alien biology, so an alien that like lays eggs or defecates through its skin is just as plausible as an alien that looks and behaves identical to us. Likewise, with ghosts, without knowing the bounds of what the ghost form is, we can't really make any real scientific analysis of them. That's where you get all this debate, like, can they affect electromagnetic fields? Can they cause cold spots, foul odors? Are they orbs that float around?
Anything goes.
Right.
Really.
Right. Maybe not. Like, we don't know. It's hard to say because we don't really have the basis for it, the framework.
Are you saying that the Sasquatch can poop through its pores?
No. Aliens can poop through its pores, not Sasquatch.
Oh, so we know by scientific fact that aliens do poop through their pores.
No. Oh, God. We're off the rails already.
I'm learning so much.
There was the Brazil Varginha crash.
Okay.
They claimed that alien could defecate through its skin, and that's why it smelled so bad.
That's amazing. Okay.
It wasn't amazing for the dude who picked it up and had it in his car.
That is. Are we going to do something on that? Because that's crazy.
Yeah, eventually we definitely will. Definitely, yeah.
God. Okay.
Okay. So in contrast to skin defecating alien, or to ghosts that float around as little balls of light, right? If a Sasquatch is a known animal from this planet, from this plane of existence, then it reasonably should follow the basic biological patterns of all other living animals. So what does that mean? It needs to eat, it needs to sleep, it needs to reproduce, it needs a territory to hunt and gather, and a home base to live safely. Now we have models for this kind of behavior: apes, humans, bears, rats, just the animals that we see in everyday life. Well, maybe we don't see, bears in everyday life, but we know that they're there and we've studied them.
And we know what ape poop looks like. I'm sorry, I'm back on poop again, but I'm like, you know what?
It'd be a very poopy episode.
I know, but I'm just thinking about it. It's like we also have the defecation trail of possible Sasquatches that we could look at as evidence too.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
And so, but I imagine that it's just similar to ours because we're all like kind of similar.
There have been reports of finding Sasquatch scat in the wild. Yes.
I have news for you. It's probably a dude.
It's just some guy.
Just some hiker.
Just some guy wandering through the woods.
He just didn't bury it.
Well, and that depends on Sasquatch diet then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what they eat is going to alter the way that their scat looks.
Yeah.
Are they omnivorous? Yeah.
Right. No, I'm just thinking maybe it's like an elephant where it's like a lot of fibers, you know?
Could be.
Sorry, everybody who's eating. Maybe you want to stop. Put down your sandwich. Put down your coyote weed sandwich and just...
That's a good callback to the Aztec crash. Depending on what Sasquatch eats, and then this all kind of raises the question of like, what are Sasquatch to begin with? If they're more of a Neanderthal type of thing, then they would consume different foods than if they were, the Boisei that just sat around and chewed all the time?
Paranthropus boisei.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're my favorite.
Right. So depending on where they come from changes what they eat. Mm-hmm. But no matter what, Neanderthals, Boisei, bears, wolverines, whatever, they all poop. You know?
Everybody poops.
Everybody poops. I learned that from that book. So because of this, the topic of Sasquatch biology and behavior is kind of a cornerstone of the research. If we can figure out how these creatures deal with the natural world around them, we can get a better understanding of their existence and we can have a better chance of being able to actually catch one, either in a camera or a trap. Therefore, the lore, legend, and truth of Sasquatch behavior and their early encounters with humans will be the subject of our series. For the most part, Sasquatch reports tend to revolve around a hiker spotting one and it quickly disappearing. Now, think about the famous Patterson-Gimlin footage. You know, that was shot from a distance, an alleged Sasquatch crossing a clearing. Without the time spent observing it, watching it eat, watching it hunt, make a nest or a bed, we don't really know much. And so many encounters, they're exactly this way. They spot something, the creature disappears within a couple of seconds, maybe a minute or two, and we don't know anything about it except that something was out there at some point. Take, for example, diet. What the heck does a hairy biped eat when it lives out in the forest? You want to take a stab at it?
Okay, I think that it eats grass and bark.
It's entirely possible.
And
we learned from Alone that can't you eat bark? Isn't there something that's in bark that you can like make into a tea and eat?
Yeah, you can eat some tree bark.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. It's not great.
So James Bobo Fay.
Bobo?
Bobo, yeah, one of the hosts of Finding Bigfoot. He claims that Sasquatch are omnivorous, meaning that they eat plants, fruits, and meats. While on a press tour for the show, Bobo noted that Sasquatch were particularly attracted to cooking bacon and would sometimes come into a camp and lick the plates and skillets clean.
I'm not shaming Bobo for his behavior, but I think that might just be him.
I mean, it might just be me. I'm also attracted to the smell of cooking bacon.
I mean, look, a lot of people would just go in any old campsite and lick the plates clean of bacon.
It's worth pointing out that Bobo didn't provide any evidence of this, which is kind of surprising since his show was literally about finding Bigfoot. And it seems that if you could attract them with just bacon, it would be pretty easy to find one, especially after 9 seasons and 100 episodes. I mean, I would just set up a trail cam and then cook some bacon.
It's a really good point. I never thought about that, but they do tend to love bacon. I think this is kind of a running theme, is that they love bacon.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's the most proof that there is no Bigfoot. Or maybe we need to do a mass experiment, like everybody drop bacon in the woods to get Bigfoot to come out, and if Bigfoot does not come out, then there's no Bigfoot.
Everybody drop bacon in the woods. Tell me where it's going to be dropped so we can set up cameras. And so I can go through and eat all the bacon.
See, you're going to ruin the experiment.
Maybe I'm secretly a Bigfoot.
Maybe
I never knew.
Can you be a secret Bigfoot? I think you can.
It's a secret to me.
Just like how you can be a reptilian. I think you can be a secret Bigfoot.
Oh, maybe I'm a Bigfoot I never knew.
Yeah.
Another Finding Bigfoot alum, Matt Moneymaker, claims that Sasquatch has a fondness for raw meat, not just cooked bacon, especially the viscera from dead deer. And Moneymaker said, In terms of nutrients, particularly in the fall and winter, an exclusive diet of deer liver could easily sustain something like a Bigfoot until spring. The only thing that would provide a better exclusive and natural diet to get through snowy season would be the liver of a larger ungulate, like a moose, elk, or bison, but only because there's more of it to eat. Moneymaker uses this justification to explain the various deer carcasses he's found during his time as a Sasquatch field researcher. After all, these deer, they were found with their abdomens cut open and their livers missing. And some were even found in trees, almost as if they had been cached by the Sasquatches to keep them safe from scavengers. There's no other behavior for that, right? What do you think, EJ?
Where are they? Because it could be mountain lion.
Yeah, so Sasquatches, they're not the only animals that head straight for the stomach and the internal organs. Do you know why?
Wait, that they're not the only animal that does
do you know why animals do that?
Oh, why they do that? I mean, I'm just gonna guess that that's probably like the softest and easiest area to access, and there's also the most nutrients in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's where the good meat is, basically.
Yeah.
You know, the liver. That's because the thing is, Sasquatch isn't the only animal that wants the liver. Like big cats want the liver too. So do wolverines, and so do badgers. You know, all that stuff. Stomach is
stomach
another
contents.
one that predators and scavengers tend to go for. And also prey animals like deer, they tend to have really thick hides on their back and their sides to protect them from predators and also just from walking around the underbrush. And they have thinner hides on their underbelly. So it's probably just easier access. That would be for big cats, for anything, you know. Coyotes, vultures, raccoons.
Well, I have a theory on that too. It's like you have an animal in the woods, let's say a deer that dies because it's attacked by coyotes or whatever,
Sure.
mountain lion, or just dies of old age. Let's say, let's just say it's dead.
Totally.
So when it decomposes, it's going to bloat, especially in the heat, and the thinnest part of the stomach is going to split first.
That's a great theory too. That wasn't something I had considered, but that's an excellent point. Yeah.
I mean, that's just my best. Thank you. That's just my best guess. I'm no, expert in decomposing bodies. I swear I'm not. I don't know anything about this.
But don't go digging in the backyard.
Don't stay out of my backyard.
And then the other thing, I mean, if you have that bloated stomach and then it rips apart, rips open, then it's easy access for your scavengers too.
Very easy. Crows? Anything?
Sure. Yeah. Now, what about these cached animals in trees? What do you think of that?
I mean, I would say that it's probably like a mountain lion, but could there be anything else, do you think?
Well, that's...
Maybe a bunch of crows? Murder of crows? They just come, they pick it up. They're smart.
All together?
They're smart. They're in the Stone Age right now.
They are, I know. It's crazy. Crows are like using stone tools, right?
Yeah, I'm so excited about it.
They're going to take over.
I hope
See,
they
everybody... we had this whole vision of Planet of the Apes, but it's really just Planet of the Crows.
I hope so, man.
The apes don't give a shit.
Yeah, and we've done a terrible job, so I'm really ready for another animal
just
to step
turn
up.
it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think mountain lions and other big cats are probably the most likely explanation for the treed animals. Finding a dead deer in a tree, missing its internal organs, that's not really proof that it's a Sasquatch kill. If I found a dead deer in a tree with its guts ripped out, I would get the hell out of there because I'd be worried that there was something watching me from the bushes. And if that doesn't scare you, go listen to our series on the Salvo man-eaters.
Hell yeah. Also, isn't that not the behavior of... I know it's a different animal. I know Bigfoot's different, but we don't really know of any evidence of like gray apes or chimpanzees taking down large animals like that and putting them up in trees, do we?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No.
Any animal experts that are listening to the show, please write in if they have thoughts.
Yes. If anybody... I mean, if you are a zoologist or if you just have experience with this type of giant ape behavior, orangutans are usually a good candidate as well. slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah. Another sticking point when we talk about Sasquatch predation on ungulates is migratory patterns. Now, I don't see this talked about enough, so let's dive into this for a second. The Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks conducted a study in Carbon County following the migration patterns of mule deer. Theoretically, these would be a great candidate for Sasquatch mules in the region. After GPS tagging 70 mule deer, the FWP followed their movements throughout the winter of 2020 to 2021. And the tagged deer traveled an average of 60 miles northwest throughout the season. And another organization, the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, charted an even larger migration region up to 150 miles. So it's possible that Sasquatches, if they do indeed prey on deer and other ungulates, would follow these migration patterns much like primitive humans did in the past. But we don't see hunting territory or migratory patterns in Sasquatch behavior.
Yeah, and honestly, if I had to guess, like, I would imagine that the Sasquatches behave a lot more like early humans than anything else, or like our great apes today. And so if we think about it, like, okay, they're going to either be those kinds of early humans that had stone tools and spears and took down deer, because you're not going to find an ape that's going to chase down a deer and get it with its teeth and claws. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, not at all.
And so it's going to either have to be an animal that hunts with tools, and there should be evidence of that.
Right.
Or it's the kind of animal that scavenges.
Right.
And so it's only chasing the migration patterns, hoping that it can vie against a pack of wolves or something like that, which is very dangerous, which would also make it have to probably have some kind of weapon to fight off the wolves to get the... I mean, it's just... There's just a lot of pipe that needs to be laid here for this.
You're exactly on the right track. Yeah, absolutely. Now, not all deer migrate, too. So you have black-tailed and white-tailed deer. They don't migrate. They congregate in one area. That's yarding. Have you heard of yarding?
No.
Yeah, deer yard when they all kind of congregate together when food sources decline. And theoretically, that would be the time when Sasquatch would be most likely to prey on them if they were going to. So it's possible that the Sasquatches prefer to stay in one place and wait for the deer to yard up nearby, and then they can pick off their prey. But if that's the case, and Sasquatches are predatory and non-migratory, then it stands to reason that they would have an established territory. That would be a den, a burrow, or a cave. This would also be true if they were scavengers. They would have some type of home base. There's a precedent for this behavior too, particularly the scavenger side, the great apes. So Fiona Stewart of the University of Cambridge spent 3 years studying chimpanzee nesting behavior in Tanzania. And writing in the Journal of Human Evolution, she noted that of the 275 nesting sites observed, a quarter of these sites got reused within 9 months, and half were reused less than 2 years. So the chimps even use primitive stone tools to construct their nests. She writes, such environmental modification through construction behavior may have played a role in both chimpanzee and early hominin ranging patterns of artifact deposition across the landscape. All of this means that we should see similar behavior with Sasquatches, using stone tools like you talked about, not even necessarily for hunting, but for making their shelters. Reusing nesting sites. But this is never the case. Now, this could be due to Sasquatches adopting a solitary lifestyle, more like an orangutan instead of a chimpanzee. Chimpanzees have larger and more developed social groups. Serge A. Witch's Orangutans, Geographic Variation in Behavioral Ecology and Conservation, goes into nesting behavior of this more solitary species. Orangutans also build nests every day. In fact, they tend to build nests twice a day, one for daytime activities and one for sleeping at night. But orangutans are even more likely to repurpose their day nests than chimpanzees, with 25% of day nests being rebuilt or repurposed.
I think that's so cute.
Isn't that cool?
That they make their own nests all the time.
They kind of have homes.
They want to have comfort and they're seeking hygge.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, they feng shui their nests. They arrange the sticks just right.
Yeah.
So if we believe that Sasquatches would share the behavior of giant apes, they would be reusing their nests frequently, which means that there should be obvious nests, right? Because they'd be well developed and they would be frequently lived in.
Yeah, the kinds of things that I saw in the Finding Bigfoot show was just a lot of like places where the bears would hang out.
Right.
Because there's obviously a difference and not what you would imagine. I don't know. It would probably just look more like an ape's nest than than what a bear would do, which is just kind of like wrestle around and make a nice
What are we talking about here? Bears have paws.
Yeah.
You know, deer have hooves. Like the nesting, the sleeping areas of these larger creatures are going to vary wildly from a Sasquatch, which supposedly has hands and opposable thumbs.
Yeah, it should look really nice.
Right. Now, what's frustrating is there have been several reports of claimed Sasquatch nests found in various places throughout the world. But more often than not, they don't hold much evidence of anything. In one report from the Bigfoot Research Organization, USDA Forest Service agent Kathy Moskowitz analyzed one of these alleged nests. This was found on private land near Sonora, California. And in her article, she says, after taking the nest apart, its construction appears to have been made in 3 stages. First, a 12-foot live oak tree was bent in a southern direction to create a dome. It was secured by a large rock on top of the limb end. The process did not kill the oak, and fresh green leaves were present on the tree at the time of recording. Second, 15 7-foot Jeffrey pine branches were stripped of small ancillary limbs and were woven into the bent oak branches to create a windbreak on the southern end. It appears that the weaving started at the top of the bend down toward the bottom. Third, through the western opening, the interior was padded with various vegetation materials.
So a person did this?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take this at face value, this is really exciting because it seems like something that a person would make. If this was not man-made, then something made this very deliberately, right? Yeah. But there are a few details that this calls into question. First, within 30 meters of the site, Moskowitz found a slash pile. Do you know what a slash pile is? It's a brush pile, like a big heap of limbs, branches, organic debris. Those are the results of forest management activities.
You mean like people did that?
Like trimming trees.
Oh, okay, I got you.
This slash pile had limbs that had very obviously been cut by a saw because they had flat, like unbroken ends. You know, they weren't like broken limbs. They actually had cuts. These had clearly been transported to the claimed nesting site as they were the pine branches that were woven in on the southern side.
Could the Bigfoot have taken the sawed area thing and put it in its nest? And
that's what Moskowitz thought.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me is that the whole site was found, according to her map, 30 meters north of a road on private land. We don't know what road this is because it's on private land, but we're talking about creatures that are supposedly so solitary that getting anything other than a blurry picture from yards away is nearly impossible. But they're totally cool just to like bed down next to a road and throw rocks at cars or something.
They seem like deep woods creatures.
Totally. Like if they were, that's what it would be. And third, and perhaps most damnable, the soil analysis from the site produced nothing. Moskowitz says, all the interior layers of the structure were examined for the presence of bone, teeth, hairs, blood, or other non-organic materials. No items that could be associated with Sasquatch were found.
Not even, did they find any human evidence?
No.
Whoa.
So you want to take a guess here? I have a theory about this.
I mean, who called her in to check this out?
Oh, I mean, I actually don't know that.
Okay.
I think it might have been the landowner.
Okay, because that would tell me something.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say it was the landowner. I mean...
Let me show you this site real quick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. But it was, like, intertwined with all this stuff? Oh, I don't know about that.
It looks awfully organic, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My guess is that this was a secondary slash pile, maybe an older one, which had the misfortune of being thrown on top of a live growing oak tree. Given the proximity to the other forest management projects, it's not impossible, and it explains the saw-cut limbs that were part of that structure. And I suspect that what happened is the tree grew, but it was also weighed down, and so the tree just grew however it could.
Yeah.
You see this happen all the time where trees grow kind of bent over.
Yeah, and I do, the picture you showed me too, it looked like it was kind of weaving the way that a tree can weave into another tree.
Absolutely,
to continue to grow.
Yeah. Moskowitz here, I think, falls into a familiar trap when it comes to this kind of analysis. To her, a Sasquatch took pine limbs from a nearby slash pile and made a nest with them. But what if those pine limbs were originally in the nest position as well as the slash pile? What evidence do we have that the limbs were actually transported from the slash pile to the nesting site? None. We call this post hoc reasoning. It's the logical fallacy where you arrive at a conclusion and then work backwards to justify why your conclusion is correct. It's probably most famous for being eloquently stated by Sherlock Holmes in A Scandal in Bohemia. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. Or in our case, twisting pine boughs to suit Sasquatch nests. And unfortunately, this is all too common in Sasquatching. Nesting sites, when they're found, are at best inconclusive.
Also, how many downed trees from a storm look like a nest, really? I mean, we're walking in the woods, you just see that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair to Kathy Moskowitz, you know, she's a USDA Forest Service agent, so she's out there a lot. But a lot of times when you get reports of these structures, these nests, they come from people who are not necessarily the most familiar with the outdoors. They're people who are in places where they're not familiar.
Yeah, and she's super familiar.
And she's super familiar. Yeah. So while I trust her judgment and I have no reason to believe that she is acting in any way other than truthfully, I think that she might just be a little bit biased toward the Bigfoot analysis rather than something that's more mundane.
There's no fibers or anything, no DNA,
yeah,
nothing.
And that's pretty damning. I mean, there's no reason. People say all the time that, oh, well, the reason we don't find Bigfoot bodies is because they bury their dead. You know, the reason that we don't find any evidence of, say, scat, or very little evidence of scat, is because they bury their scat. But eventually, something's gonna get found. Right? Like they're not all going to be that way. Something's going to get found. All of this means that Sasquatch diets, Sasquatch nesting sites are inconclusive, despite what moneymaker Bobo and Moskowitz claim. Now, ultimately, that leaves us with just a great big question mark when it comes to the behavior of our hairy bipeds. If they exist, there's just too much data noise out there in the forests and too little actual field reporting of them doing anything behavioral. That's why the stories of Ruby Creek and Albert Ostman are such a pivotal part of Sasquatch research, because they discuss the actual behavior of these animals and are detailed firsthand by witnesses who saw more than just something running across the path in front of them. If these reports are true, and we're going to talk about them, if they are true accounts of human observations of Sasquatches, they could shed valuable light on how these creatures behave. But can they be trusted? And are they real accounts of unknown hairy primates, or are they something else?
I mean, I don't know. Are you asking me?
I'm sure.
I mean,
do you have an answer?
I think it's a bear in a Sasquatch costume.
Oh man, maybe. Yeah. What if, oh man, maybe it's a bear that's dressed up like Sasquatch, that's trying to lead people away. They don't want to be found out as a bear.
Yes, because bears have it tough right now.
It's true.
Had it tough for a long time.
Yes, I'm working on another series where we're going to talk about just how tough bears have it. It's really wild. You know that there used to be between 50 and 100,000 grizzly bears from Canada, like Alaska, Canada, all the way down to Mexico.
No.
Think about that.
All the way down to Mexico.
All the way down to Mexico. Yeah, they were everywhere. And then they got hunted almost to extinction. Hunted deep into almost endangered.
Wow. Well, now they're okay. Now they're better. They're doing better. They're they're probably
yeah. I don't know that I
would.
would say that they're okay, but they're doing better.
They're doing better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good. Even though they terrify the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Okay. Before we talk about some of these Squatchy stories, we need to first talk about the wild man of the woods. At least since the Middle Ages, and most likely throughout all of human history, there have been stories of wild men or wild children living alone in the woods outside of society. The earliest English use of the archetype seems to come from an 11th century depiction in Geoffrey of Monmouth's Life of Merlin. The wizard, Merlin, encounters a wild man, or woodwose, who left civilization after a gruesome battle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he was like changed by the battle and needed to be away from society.
Yeah, so this is essentially like PTSD.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. This is a quote from the book. A strange madness came upon him. He crept away and fled to the woods, unwilling that any should see his going. Into the forest he went, glad to lie hidden beneath the ash trees. He watched the wild creatures grazing on the pastures of the glades. Sometimes he would follow them, sometimes pass them in his course. He made use of roots and plants of grasses, of fruits from trees, and of the blackberries in the thicket. He became a wild man of the woods, as if dedicated to the woods. So, for a whole summer he stayed hidden in the woods, discovered by none, forgetful of himself and his own, lurking like a wild thing.
That sounds very freeing.
Yeah.
You forget yourself, so you lose your ego, and you just live in the woods.
What interests me is that it was civilization or, war, but kind of that like modernity that drove him away.
Yeah, I also think probably this was spurned a lot heavily. I would say heavily, probably by the pressures of society back then, medieval society, and how horrible it was.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah. And also when the plague started up, and it lasted for centuries, in one way or another, it's like I'm sure we had a lot of people leaving and living in the woods just to get away from it.
Well, when were the plagues?
I think it might. Well, the Black Plague I think started in the 1200s, but check for me. I'm not sure. It lasted up until the 1500s.
So Black Plague was 1346 to 1353. So that would be the 14th century.
Okay.
So this predates even that.
But I think that it was still there in. Well, it never left, but I think that it had its resurgences all throughout.
Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of plagues, and also life was just kind of shitty.
Yeah, life was shitty, definitely.
Yeah. Woodwoses, whatever they are, they pop up throughout the next couple of centuries. Maybe most prominently in an Arthurian poem from the 1300s titled Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This text links the woodwose to the green man.
I was going to say the green man.
Exactly, yeah.
I was going to say. Okay.
Yeah, another forest archetype found frequently in architecture. The green man is part man, part foliage, often depicted with branches surrounding his face and body. Almost like a crown of leaves around him.
Fucking awesome, man. It's like Midsummer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is all, and you see all of this as this kind of, it's like a little druidic. It's definitely like it's not Christian. It's far from Christian, right?
Yeah.
And this is all kind of where things start to get hairy. Because some of the interpretations of the Green Man have him looking like a dryad or a half man, half tree.
Oh.
But some have him peering through gaps in foliage, not actually a part of the foliage himself. In these, the green man could be construed as a human, a normal person living in the woods and voyeuristically peeking at others from his hiding place. These leaf-covered or foliate heads dovetail very nicely with the pre-Christian nature spirit Puck. Now, Puck was a popular Middle Ages folklore motif, this tricky nature spirit, probably best known for turning Bottom's head into that of a donkey in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Puck would go on to sometimes be called Robin Goodfellow and eventually partially inspire the imagery for Robin Hood.
Oh, is that why he's wearing green?
Yes.
Probably. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. And if you think about it, Robin Hood shares Puck's home in the woods. He's surrounded by merry men all hiding out in Nottingham Forest and essentially playing pranks on the sheriff and his bumbling knights, right?
Yeah.
It all fits in with Puck's antics. And Puck shares a lot of similarities with ancient Greek's Pan, the god of the wild and companion of the nymphs.
So cool, man. It's
Yeah.
like such a it's like the revolutionary of like the society. It's like, you know, you're outside of it all.
Oh,
You're-
yeah,
you're
absolutely,
causing
yeah.
you're causing chaos and you're coming in and out of the, like how Puck did in Midsummer Night's Dream, popping in and out, causing chaos and,
Yeah.
and watching everybody just like explode into this.
Well, and that notion of like dropping in, fucking shit up, and then disappearing, that is the way that these cultures are viewing the uncivilized woods. You know, because we have this push of civilization that's starting here. And whenever the woods, that force of nature comes in, it's going to fuck with your way of life.
It's very hard to control a population that is free and living, you know, unhindered.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Pan was a satyr, a man with a horsetail, hooved feet, and, depending on your MPAA rating, a gigantic erection.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
As
Constantly.
Oh, yes. Constantly.
Wow.
An enormous penis, enormous erection.
Okay.
As an aside, this massive pork whistle was actually symbolic of a lower upbringing. Are you familiar with this?
I do know that that a lot of the Roman and Greek statues, I think, were depicted with men with tinier members because it showed that they were of higher.
It showed that
They're smarter,
they
right?
were smarter,
Yeah, like they're
yeah.
not using their. Yeah.
Yep. Author and historian Martini Fisher writes in her article, "The uneventful love life of the great god Pan," which sounds like a romantic novel but isn't. Unlike many other depictions of male gods, Pan is often depicted with an erect phallus. This is significant as in the ancient world, depictions of small penises were more culturally valued as large penises were associated with characteristics such as foolishness, lust, and ugliness. Meanwhile, the ancient Greek man was rational, intellectual, and authoritative, as his small penis allowed him to remain coolly logical.
That's so weird. It's not like you have less sex drive if your penis is smaller. Like, that's so weird.
I think that was the concept, though.
I think it's funny how it's flipped now, where it's just like you want to have a big dick.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Now
it's
everybody
just
wants
so
it. It's
weird.
funny, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Beauty standards, you know, how they change throughout the years.
How they change.
Yep.
Essentially, Pan's wild, savage nature was showed through his massive Lincoln log as a visual representation of the unconstrained aspect of nature. And so again, you have this deity serving as a dangerous nature spirit, someone who lives outside of established society, and he won't hesitate to come in and let his primal desire take hold.
Wow. Also, what a way to like vilify sexuality.
Well, that's a whole other part of it, yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, it's you know, again, I keep going back to like the freer people, and like you have to bring them into submission, and you can't let them be themselves and be sexual and be open and
Yeah.
I'm just saying the Holy Roman Empire probably did not want.
Well, and this
That
is going to get echoed in the next episode when we start to talk about the education that was brought to the indigenous populations.
Quote, education.
Yeah, quote, education. Yeah. We're going to get real deep into that. But when the white settlers came in and started trying to teach Christianity and quote unquote civilization to indigenous people, and how they started telling them, well, no, you want to be civilized and cultural like us. You want to reject your barbaric, savage, again, these are their words, barbaric and savage ways of the woods. But we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah.
We're getting ahead. Anyway.
Buckle up. Okay.
By the 1800s, wild men had become something of a boogeyman-style creature. So they were lurking in the woods, ready to snatch up anyone foolish to wander away from civilization. Sightings of wild people popped up throughout the course of the 1800s and culminated with the capture of one in 1884 in British Columbia. According to an article in the Daily Colonist from July 4th, 1884, an express train was brought to a standstill when an engineer spotted something on the tracks. Now, at first, he thought it was a person, but when he blew the train's whistle, the figure jumped up and started to scale the nearby cliffs. The creature is described in the article as being, quote, something of the gorilla type, standing about 4 foot 7 inches in height and weighing 127 pounds. He has long, black, strong hair and resembles a human being with one exception. His entire body, excepting his hands or paws and feet, are covered in glossy hair about an inch long. His forearm is much longer than a man's, and he possesses extraordinary strength, as he will take hold of a stick and break it by wrenching or twisting it, which no man could break in the same way.
He got to see all that in the flash of, like, after a train whistle?
Well, they catch him. But,
okay, yeah. Okay.
I'm just fascinated by the stick breaking test of strength, where I just imagine them being like, here, can you break this? Can you break this? Can you break this? Whoa, he's really strong.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Carry my groceries. Yes, very strong.
Okay. For some reason, the train was running ahead of schedule. Obviously, this was the 1880s because no trains run ahead of schedule anymore.
No.
And the people aboard decided, rather than get to their destination early, they should just wait here and go chase the thing up the cliff.
It's very 1880s. So 1880s.
So they did. And they caught up to it. And the conductor dropped a rock on its head.
Oh my God.
Knocking it out cartoon style. Like, I just imagine this, like, large lump forming and birds just flapping around its head. So, having successfully overpowered their quarry, the men tied it up and took it back on the train and continued their trip. The creature, which rode in the baggage car, was given over to a George Trilby, or George Trilbury, who called it Jacko and considered taking it on tour to London. Jacko was kept in a local jail, presumably in Yale, British Columbia, and fed a diet of milk. It was never given meat because Trilby was concerned that eating meat might make Jacko feral.
Okay.
Jacko, for his part, couldn't speak English or French, and he communicated with only barks.
He couldn't speak French?
Yeah.
Wow. What a dummy.
There again, there's like some guy who tries English, and they're like, oh, well, he can't speak English. Perhaps he can speak French. And then he just barks at them. They're like, oh, he can't speak French either. Come on, guys.
Oh, my God. The whole time it could speak Spanish.
Yeah.
German.
Yeah, it was actually completely fluent in
Austrian,
Portuguese.
Yeah, Portuguese, but nobody asked, so.
If this story is true, it is a horrific depiction of men capturing a poor animal who had been disturbed by a passing train and got forced into touring a zoo. But luckily, the story is completely made up, all false.
Yay! Good. I was getting mad.
Yeah. So, within the week, other newspapers started investigating the strange story about this captured wild man. On July 9th, the New Westminster Mainland Guardian reported that, quote, no such animal was caught, and how the colonist was duped in such a manner and by such a story is strange. By the end of the week, the story had grown so popular that 200 people showed up at the jail to see Jacko. On July 11th, the British Columbian reported that the eager guests found only a very bewildered jailkeeper who probably had to spend his entire day turning people away.
Oh, man. Despite
the fact that this story is clearly an Independence Day joke. And did you know that on Independence Day, July 4th, they used to have jokes in papers as well? Yeah.
No.
So
that's cute.
Yeah, same way as like April 1st. But despite that this was a joke, it continued to be touted as evidence of a captured Sasquatch. Although the story went quiet for a while, it was unearthed by John Green and Renee DeHinden, who together make up one half of the four horsemen of Sasquatch research. But we'll talk about them in a minute. Some researchers, like Grover Krantz, another one of the four horsemen, claim that it really happened. Krantz believed that Jacko got past to P.T. Barnum, who renamed him Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy and toured with him around the country.
Sorry, Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy is like so mean.
That's a real person, by the way.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, like that was okay.
Yes, Jojo was actually Fedor Jefchu, a circus performer from St. Petersburg who suffered from a condition called hypertrichiosis, or abnormal hair growth on his body.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he had worked with his father in French circuses for years before joining up with Barnum. Barnum, of course, is the, legendary pictures, like the MCU of entertainment at the time. Like if you go there, you're going to make your fortune for sure. You just have to understand that he's also going to abuse you to no end.
Yeah.
Because Barnum, being Barnum, claimed that he had tracked Jefferchu to a remote cave in Russia where he and his father were captured and brought back to civilization. And in Barnum's story, Jojo didn't speak English. He communicated only through barks, much like the captured wild man. In reality, Jefferchu could speak Russian and French and write his name. It's interesting to note that Jefferchu joined Barnum in 1884, the same year that the Daily Colonist reported a hairy wild man. I don't know if there's an actual significance there, but it's clear that wild men were on the brains of North Americans at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a stretch to look at the westward expansion that was going on during the late 1800s and the taming of the wilderness, quote unquote, that made up so much of those decades. This was a time where we were striving towards civilization and beating back the dark woods that once scared humanity away. The notion of dragging wild creatures from this feral place and humanizing them, raising them to be respectable members of civilization, does really nicely fit in the narratives of settlers conquering the land. And it's sort of the next evolution of the wild man of the woods. First, we have him, he's peeking through the trees, he's watching you. You have Pan, who might swoop in and grab you and take you back to his lair. And now we are starting to take the wild man from the woods and domesticate them. Mm-hmm. Regardless, these stories pop up from time to time throughout the next couple of decades, leading into the 20th century. But it really comes back in the public eye in the 1950s, thanks to the Centennial Sasquatch Hunt and the granddaddy of Sasquatch hunting, Renee DeHinden. Now, DeHinden left his home of Weggis, Switzerland in 1953 and moved to Canada. There's not much information on his early life, but we know that he was 23 when he made the move, and he started working on a dairy farm in Alberta. DeHinden looks and acts like a character straight out of Letterkenny. Oh, yeah. Please,
I want to see him.
Please.
Oh, he looks like, how are you now? Where are you, Wayne?
Oh, McMurtry.
Yeah, he looks like McMurtry.
McMurray.
He looks like McMurray.
Yeah, McMurray. Having seen some videos with him, that's also kind of how he talks, too. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
Yeah, he's got that sort of, like, rural Canadian mutter way of talking, like this. Yeah.
Yeah, where are you now? Yeah, I saw I saw a Sasquatch. I can't do it.
Yeah, he's got short hair, he's got man bangs, squinty eyes, and he absolutely has a surly attitude. He was known for having a very gruff sense of humor. Once, when he was touring on a visit to Russia, he held aloft a plaster cast of a Sasquatch track that he had taken, and he said, "If anyone finds this evidence immaterial, let me strike his head with it."
That's good. I like him.
Didn't take shit, the Hinden. His obsession, and it was an obsession with Sasquatches, started when he heard a CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company, broadcast on the radio about an expedition to the Himalayas to search for the Yeti. He was working on the dairy farm at the time, and he turned to his employer and he said, "Wouldn't that be something, to be on the hunt for that thing?" And Wilbur Willich, the dairy farmer, shrugged and said back, "Hey, you don't have to go that far. They got them things in British Columbia." And this one simple sentence led to a lifetime of hunting for de Hinden.
That's so exciting and cool.
It changed his entire outlook. He's already an experienced outdoorsman. He spends all of his free time hiking through the wilderness. And now he's doing it again, but in pursuit of the mythical Sasquatch. He pored over local legends and native folk traditions, which we're going to talk about in the next episode. De Hinden's obsession led him to the hamlet of Harrison Hot Springs, a resort town on the southern end of Harrison Lake in British Columbia. This town, newly incorporated in 1949, took its name from the hot springs that lined the lake. These had been used by the First Nations people for centuries, particularly the Chehalis. And we're going to talk more about their traditions in the next episode as well. But there, in this newly formed community, de Hinden was about to meet a man who would not only validate his hunts, but become one of his closest partners and champions. And it's with their meeting and the first ever Harrison Hot Springs Sasquatch hunt that we'll pick up next time.
Yay! Yeah, take a little dip in the pond there, Wayne. I can see Wayne though, like he doesn't change. He doesn't get out of his outfit though. He stays in his flannel. He stays in his jeans. He's like, all right, here's good, Wayne.
Well, no, what you do is you just roll up your pants a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, like halfway to your knee, and then you dip in.
Yeah, maybe you untie your laces of your boots a little bit. Let the water get in there.
Stand out there with your arms crossed. Water shore is nice today.
Water's warm today, Wayne. Or good you.
Jared Kiso, if you're listening to this, can we please make a movie about the Harrison Hot Springs Centennial Sasquatch hunt? This would be amazing.
Oh yeah, I can. It's right up his alley. Like, yeah, I'm sure he can't wait to do that.
All Canadian things are up his alley. It's fine.
It is Canadian. That's true. It is. Maybe he'd like it.
Yeah, actually, they're very different because they're just outside of Quebec. I forget where Letterkenny is, but it's way on the other side of Canada. Canada. I mean, Letterkenny's not real, but there's a
good fishing in Quebec.
Yeah. They're in Ontario. Oh. Letterkenny takes place in Sudbury, Ontario.
Oh, Sudbury. Okay.
Yeah, which is we're way on the other side of Canada. They're
more like
far away
because they're more central, right? And British Columbia is west.
Yeah, British Columbia. So
way west.
Yeah, so to contextualize what's going on here, because we're going to be talking exclusively about British Columbia in this series, and British Columbia is like straight north of Washington State.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
So very, very far west.
Yeah.
You go Washington ultimately through Vancouver, because Vancouver's just across the border from Washington. bear with us, people, because we're Americans.
We're dumb.
So yeah, you cross the Washington border, you hit Vancouver, and then pretty much if you go straight north from Vancouver, you're going to hit the region that we're talking about here.
Middle of nowhere. Really
pretty
cool.
Much.
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
And then contrast that with Letterkenny takes place in like north of Michigan.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like north of Michigan.
Far away.
And then there's like closer to where I'm from. I'm not, but it's like I'm south of where north of where I'm from is like New Brunswick.
Well, that's
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. Yeah, Nova Scotia.
And I'm an idiot. All the Canadians are bashing their heads against the wall, being like, "Shut up! You're so dumb."
Yeah. So
I'm from New York.
It's interesting. We're talking really about the West here.
Yeah.
And what you'll see is that all Bigfoot mythology, and now I'm talking specifically Bigfoot, not Sasquatch, because as you find, we had Yeti mythology before this. But all Bigfoot mythology spawns from this region. And actually, believe it or not, all Bigfoot mythology actually spawns from British Columbia, what we're talking about right here, right now.
Wow.
This is the ground zero of it. Cool. And that's why Dahinden goes there. But you don't see Eastern Bigfoots. Like, you don't see Bigfoots in, say, Maine or upstate New York, even Eastern Canada.
There's plenty of like stories of it though, right? Especially modern time.
But you don't see it at this point.
No, like
at this point, the stories are exclusively Western Canada and a little bit of like Washington State, maybe a little bit of Oregon State, but it's all the Pacific Northwest. That's where everything is originating from. And it's not until, remember I was talking about the eras in the beginning, it's not until the post-Patterson-Gimlin era that we then start to say, okay, maybe there are New York stories as well. Maybe there are Vermont stories of Bigfoot. Or the skunk ape in Florida, down in the Everglades and stuff like that. So we're really talking about the dawn of Sasquatchery right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
So not Bigfoot sunset, but Bigfoot sunrise.
Yeah, I guess Sasquatch sunrise.
Oh, Sasquatch sunrise. That's right.
You need the alliteration.
The Sasquatch sunrise sounds like a cocktail to me. It could just be because I want a cocktail right now, but it also could be because Saratoga Sunrise is a drink that was sold at the racetrack.
Well, also Tequila Sunrise, right?
Tequila Sunrise, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about that.
Is there? Hang on.
There has to be.
Sasquatch Sunrise has to be a drink, right?
Has to be a drink. What is it made out of? Like grass.
Holy shit! I don't see it.
Whoa.
Okay, so what is in a Sasquatch sunrise?
I want our listeners.
Yeah,
to
I
tell us.
I think write us in slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. What is the Sasquatch sunrise recipe?
How would you make it?
Yeah. And if we get a bunch of them, I think that we have a taste test.
Ooh.
I think we have a taste test. Sasquatch sunrise drinks.
Okay, well, it should all be edible then. Let's just put that caveat in.
Well, yeah, obviously, like don't make a glass full of bark or something.
I don't know. I mean, it would be. I honestly, it might be. So.
Yeah. What is your Sasquatch sunrise cocktail? Slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. Tell us.
Yes.
Nice.
Based on everything we talked about.
Yeah.
Class.
Yeah.
What'd you come up with? I'd like school a lot more if my teacher was like, okay, based on what we talked about in World War II, what would you make as a cocktail?
You 12-year-old children, what would you put in a cocktail? It's all going to be like, well, a little bit of Kool-Aid and Gatorade. Like, So next time we are going to talk about some of the indigenous legends that come from that area. We're going to talk about the people that equate them with Sasquatch and why that doesn't make any sense at all. And then we're going to talk about the first annual Centennial Sasquatch Hunt.
That sounds fun.
Awesome.
Cool, man. All right. Well, everybody stay cool out there. It's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's hot where we are.
Where we are. Yeah.
And yeah.
Nice.
Thank you all for listening.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Be safe out there. Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the Paranormal History Podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways to show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on Instagram @slayingmonsterspodcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.